Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and Giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Leeser, your host for all things Giallo here on the King and Giallo, and we are doing another unscripted talking head movie review. This is for the 1972 Giallo film, which goes by numerous titles. That is The Dead Are Alive, also called The Etruscan Kills Again, also called Mystery of the Yellow Grave, as well as Overtime, okay, as well as The Death God Kills Again. This is directed by Armando Crispino, I think is how you would say that. Music is by Ritz Ortolani, which makes perfect sense now that I'm reading that. And the film is full of a lot of Giallo veterans. Again, this will be another brief one. I watched 3 Giallo films today in preparation for me doing the Forgotten Giallo film series. Those other movies were Naked Girl Killed in the Park, Beleth, the Demon of Incest, which is more Giallo adjacent, as well as this one. And I have to say, the other 2 ones I found to be rather slow, but what was interesting is all 3 of these movies had something very similar going on, or at least, I mean, a Giallo film comparison for one I've seen to these ones I recently watched, which actually goes for all of them, and that is The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave. And for some, that was just because of the setting more so than anything else. For others, it was because of an implied paranormal or supernatural element, and this movie definitely has that as well. Is there a brief? So the brief plot that I'll read you off of Wikipedia is 2 young people looking for a place to make love are brutally murdered in an Etruscan tomb which had recently been violated by a group of archaeologists led by Professor Porter, played by Alex Cord. The corpses are positioned so as to indicate they were murdered as sacrifices to the Etruscan death god Tucha. Several other murders occur, focusing on members of the archaeology team and friends of Professor Porter's. The victims have their heads bashed. Yeah. So real quick with the cast, Alex Cord is our lead. I only was going through the Wikipedia filmographies for them, which are not as dense as IMDb, which shows like everything, including cameos. So I didn't see anything for him that appeared in any other Giallo films. Samantha Eggar, who plays Myra, was in, again, also just going off of Wikipedia, but what I did see that she was in the 1983 slasher Giallo sort of hybrid Curtains. So that is very interesting, as well as John Marley, who plays the composer, who is the husband of Myra, who our main character has like an old fling with, and he's trying to reignite that. He was in a lot of Alfred Hitchcock Hour, and he was in The Twilight Zone. In terms of Giallo, like, he has a lot of television appearances. He would also go on, I don't know if this was earlier or later the same year, to be in The Godfather. He's also in The Incredible Hulk, I guess, the show. Carlo De Mejo would go on to be in a lot of Fulci films that are not Giallo, but nonetheless Italian horror. That is City of the Living Dead, as well as The House by the Cemetery, and then Manhattan Baby, which is, also Fulci. I don't know why I was thinking Bava for a hot second. He also was in Terror Express, which is, I guess I was thinking Horror Express. And then Hurst Frank is in this, and he's probably been in the most Giallo films of the cast. We would all probably know him best for his appearance in The Cat o' Nine Tails as Dr. Brown. He was also in I Am the Labyrinth earlier this year as Luca. Oh, he was also in, I skipped over this, So Sweet, So Perverse as the enigmatic Klaus. Enzo Cherosico was in Blood and Black Lace as a gas station attendant, which is funny because that's more of a cameo, but he does end up kind of fingering the perp. But beyond that, again, I'm just going off of Wikipedia. I don't see much else. And then Enzo Tarascio was in The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, which is great because I've been making all those allusions to it all day. He was also in The Designated Victim, and I guess that is it. But okay, so I'll try and be brief once again with this. I enjoyed this. I know a lot of people were saying that it was very slow or it was boring, but it is kind of slow, but I really enjoyed it. And in terms of especially the other 2 movies I watched earlier, it was like the best use of a setting. It was the best use of music, both an original soundtrack as well as classic compositions that were used in it, which reminded me a bit of The Bloodstained Butterfly and some other Giallo movies. What other Giallo movies use classic music? Watch Me When I Kill. But no, I really enjoyed this one, and it is available. I thought it was available, but I think it is, but it's not US, which might be difficult for me if I want to try and track this down. I'll have tried to upload this to YouTube before this review goes up, but again, it's probably going to be age restricted because there is. I was happy thinking, oh, it's not going to be age restricted, this one, and then we get like a sex scene like 2/3 into the movie, and I'm like, great, well, nothing I can do about that. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed this movie, and in terms of the cast, I also felt like the actors were doing a very good job. I felt like they didn't come off as that they were sleepwalking through it, kind of like in the last movie. Was it the last one? No. Naked Girl Killed in the Park. It really felt like everybody, aside from Adolfo Celli, was just kind of sleepwalking. But I enjoyed this, and I really hope that Vinegar Syndrome or Arrow or somebody picks this up and gives us a nice, good U.S. release. Forgive me if there is a U.S. release. Doing my quick preliminary Google search, I couldn't find anything, but I really enjoyed this movie. And again, the comparisons to other Giallo films, the night Evelyn came out of the grave, there also were a few instances where I'm thinking, Hatchet for the Honeymoon, in terms of when you find out who the killer is and you see their flashbacks. They like to do that. We like to do that in Giallo, where we show someone and we reveal that they have some unresolved trauma from when they were younger, and that reminded me of the flashbacks we see that are pervasive through Hatchet for the Honeymoon, as well as the final moment in Hatchet where our main character, by Stephen Forsythe, he's starting to go crazy. There was a similar moment in The Etruscan Kills Again where the killer is going crazy as a woman is like sitting in the room like, oh my gosh, and he's like looking in the mirror. So there was a few allusions to Hatchet for the Honeymoon. Other than that, there was a little bit of The House with Laughing Windows, but not a whole lot. But oh my god, the music. And like I said, now that I'm finding out it's Ritz Ortolani, that makes a lot of sense, because this soundtrack, or the theme at least, sounded so much like Cannibal Holocaust, which is, 8 years later? It also sounded like an Ennio Morricone track from, the song's called Un Amico, which was famously used in Inglourious Bastards by Quentin Tarantino, but it's the theme for the 1973 film Revolver by Sergio Solima. So yeah, there were elements of the song that every time it played, I was thinking Cannibal Holocaust, which was really cool because the settings are fairly similar in terms of it being way out in the wilderness. Obviously, we're not in the jungle, but yeah. And then there were motifs, whatever, of the music that was nearly identical to Un Amico by Morricone. But yeah, so what else can I say? Like I said, I enjoyed this movie, and I think it probably should be getting a little bit more praise. I understand people saying it's slow, whatever. I thought it was engaging. I thought it was fairly engaging, and there was a lot of shots. There were, like, for example, there's a part where we go into a theater, and we're watching the character who is the conductor, and he's conducting a rehearsal, and just the 40 seconds of watching him, watching the stage, watching the inspector sitting in the audience observing this, I was like, this is better than the entire last two movies I watched. It was great shots. It was great usage of all of the settings wherever they went. And the director felt very competent, felt like he knew what he was doing. So yeah, I think this movie does deserve to get a little bit more love, and we will see, because this might actually end up in my top 10 for 1972 by the time we get to the end of it. I'm not sure, but if it does, I might have to give it a jolly tally, because I enjoyed it. And then what else? What other movies was it reminding me of? There's a little bit of the Sisters of Ursula, but that might just be because of the sex scenes going into someone coming in and, bludgeoning people. There was something else I'd wanted to say, but now I can't really think about it. Wait. I remembered one more thing I wanted to talk about. As you can tell, I don't have my hat on. I had to run back here to my little studio and then set everything up again. There is a car chase in this movie which felt a little out of place, but not in a bad way. It was actually such a welcome sight, because it was more engaging than any of the other car chases I've seen in Giallo films beforehand. Like the one in Suspicious Death of a Minor is pretty good too, but this one was really, really good. And it's between Hurst Frank like driving and the main guy. What was his name? So sorry. Oh shit, what was his name? Professor Jason Porter, played by Alex Court. Yeah, this chase was really good, and what was really funny was at least 5 times Hurst Frank like takes a turn real quick or something that throws off the professor behind him, and he'll like either kind of like he's got to realign and now turn the other way, or he crashes into a trash can and now he's got to like go around it. Like numerous times he gave him the slip, and somehow when it would cut back to Hurst Frank and then cut back to the professor, he's like right behind him again. And so if you're ever in a police chase or a car chase in general, and you got to pick who's going to be your guy, this is your guy, because somehow he always caught up. And then it was so funny because there would be times where they were driving on like parallel roads with like a whole building and avenues in between them or alleyways in between them, and he'd be like looking down, seeing Hurst Frank going, and I'm like, how is like I wouldn't be surprised if the movie all of a sudden had it where he gets him, but he gets like stuck somewhere and he gets out and runs, and then he sees Hurst Frank coming down this other area and getting out of his car, and he's looking back and running, not sure where he is, and it's like, oh well, he's over here, and he chases him in through a building. But it was such a good chase, and it was also incredibly tense because of how tight the roads were. And then there's a part where they almost hit a kid, and yeah, so I did have to mention that was really good. I did not expect this movie to have one of the better car chases I've ever seen in a Giallo, but yeah, that was good stuff. So yeah, the whole element, there was a whole bit to the movie where they're finding these old paintings, Etruscan paintings on the wall, and it's depicting a murder, and they're like, so you're telling me this killer somehow was inspired by these murders that occurred this weekend? No, I enjoy this. And Hurst Frank had a great role as this very flamboyant choreographer. He was great. Everybody did a great job. I honestly feel that way. And yeah, like I said, it might be like a little slow, but it wasn't bad. So I would definitely recommend this one. But yeah, that's really all I've got to say for the movie. Check it out. And I'm eager to hear your questions, thoughts, curiosities, or concerns in the comments. And like always, I'll get back to you. And other than that, this is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo. And if nothing else, I'll see you next time.
Who's there? Ah, fat ass.
Ow!
Well, Stephen, if the police are not suspicious of a faggot choreographer, no offense to you,